Welcome, valiant truth seekers, to another thrilling deep dive into the dark shadows of modern history. Many people believe the fierce anger between Iran and the West began with the 1979 revolt. Yet the true origin of this nightmare dates back to a shadowy covert op in 1953. Ruthless Western agents launched a massive covert coup to overthrow a freely elected prime minister. They carelessly traded a nation's freedom for cheap oil, planting the seeds of a devastating modern conflict. Hidden behind closed doors in Washington and London, incredibly powerful men forged a secret, destructive plan. Meanwhile, the sun-baked streets of Tehran burned brightly under the heavy weight of political fire. Why exactly does this bitter hatred persist today between the Western powers and the Iranian people? The striking answer lies in a highly classified project known to insiders as Operation Ajax. If you were a citizen of this nation, how would you react to a stolen democracy? In the early 1950s, Iran was a nation bracing for a bright, democratic dawn. A highly educated population was eager to finally control their own destiny. They gathered in massive crowds on the avenues, demanding a fair share of their natural wealth. For decades, foreign empires had ruthlessly plundered the rich resources beneath the Persian soil. According to declassified records, Britain held an iron grip on the entire oil trade. The Anglo-Iranian Oil Company extracted millions, while the local citizens starved in deep poverty. This incredibly glaring injustice fueled a fierce nationalist movement sweeping across the vast country. Right at the heart of this powerful awakening stood a brilliant man named Mohammad Mosaddegh. He was a highly respected lawyer and a passionate defender of Iranian rights. Mosaddegh envisioned a proud, sovereign state where native citizens truly reaped the benefits of their land. His popularity skyrocketed as he promised to break the heavy chains of foreign control. The Iranian parliament voted him into the prime minister office with overwhelming joy. In 1951, he made a bold, historic move that stunned the entire Western Hemisphere. He officially nationalized the Iranian oil industry, taking back their stolen treasure. The gigantic Abadan refinery, a symbol of British might, was now under local rule. British oil executives were absolutely furious as their lucrative monopoly collapsed. London retaliated by imposing a brutal global economic embargo on the state. British warships patrolled the Persian Gulf, threatening any vessel daring to transport the oil. The Iranian economy suffered heavily, but Mosaddegh refused to surrender his cause. Unable to crush him financially, the British government turned to a much darker strategy. They reached out to America, a nation previously sympathetic to Iranian goals. But in order to convince Washington, Britain had to completely change the narrative of truth. This was the dawn of the Cold War, and a new ideological terror was gripping the whole world. The agents of MI6 painted a truly terrifying picture of Iran for the CIA. They completely falsely claimed that Mosaddegh was a dangerous communist sympathizer. They argued that if Iran fell to the Soviets, the entire Middle East would quickly follow suit. Washington officials, blinded by the Red Scare, began to view the Prime Minister as a grave threat. According to historical facts, Mossadegh actually despised socialism and Soviet rule. He was a staunch nationalist who merely wanted independence from any foreign influence. Yet the Western media machine went into overdrive to demonize his public policy. Newspapers in London and New York published fabricated stories about his mental stability. They portrayed him as an eccentric lunatic, unfit to govern a strategic nation like Iran. In images broadcast worldwide, he appeared in his pajamas, projecting a false image of weakness. Behind the scenes, President Eisenhower finally agreed to intervene with secret force. The CIA set up a covert base in Tehran, funneling massive amounts of untraced cash. A top-secret mission was drafted, aiming to bypass the democratic will of the citizens. The man chosen to lead this shadowy operation was Kermit Roosevelt, a trained CIA agent. He arrived in Iran under the cover of darkness, carrying suitcases stuffed with dollar bills. His primary goal was to create a perfect illusion of domestic unrest and civil war. Roosevelt bribed many politicians, clergymen, and high-ranking military officers. At the same time, Mossadegh appealed to the United Nations for justice against British abuse. He delivered a passionate speech in New York, defending his nation's absolute sovereignty. Iranians listened to the radio broadcasts with immense pride in their unyielding premier. But while he bravely fought for his country on the global stage, the poisonous web tightened back home. The American agents financed a massive propaganda campaign to break the public trust. They printed thousands of anti-government pamphlets and distributed them across the capital. Think about it. How easily can a nation's perception be manipulated by hidden cash? The secret documents reveal that the CIA even hired street thugs to attack civilians. These paid criminals pretended to be communist supporters, roaming the streets to spread blind panic. They smashed shop windows, beat up innocent passers-by, and vandalized sacred religious monuments. The goal was crystal clear: make the people believe that Mossadegh had completely lost all control. By early 1953, the ubiquitous CIA bribery began to show its dark fruits. The Iranian parliament became severely divided as corrupt members switched their loyalties. Even some influential religious leaders, fearing a communist revolt, turned against him. Mossadegh quickly realized the depth of the treachery, but his resources were draining far too low. Britain and America formally agreed upon the final destructive phase of TPAJAX. The discovery of this hidden plot proves it was never about defending the free world or democracy. It was an imperial execution, designed only to secure the fluid flow of cheap black gold. The operation relied heavily on the ambition of the young Iranian king, the Shah. Shah Pahlavi was a wealthy monarch who secretly resented Mossadegh's growing civil power. The CIA agents convinced the Shah to sign illegal decrees to dismiss the Prime Minister. If the Shah fully cooperated, the Americans promised to restore his total royal authority. On August 15th, the first attempt at the military coup was hastily put into motion. Colonel Naziri, a royal loyalist, arrived at Mossadegh's residence to arrest him. However, The Prime Minister's robust security forces anticipated the sudden assault. The royal colonel was arrested, and the initial coup attempt failed miserably that night. Fearing for his own life, the terrified Shah fled Iran on a private flight to Italy. In Washington, intelligence directors panicked, believing their clandestine efforts were destroyed. Mosaddegh addressed the nation, declaring that the foreign-inspired rebellion was defeated. Democratic supporters poured into the streets, celebrating a momentary taste of victory. They tore down royal statues and cheerfully ripped up portraits of the fled Iranian monarch. But Kermit Roosevelt, still hiding in Tehran, refused to abandon the destructive mission. He directly ignored strict orders from headquarters to abort, choosing to double his covert efforts. Using the remaining CIA funds, he organized a second, much more violent uprising. The American agent purchased the loyalty of General Zahedi, a ruthless commander. Zahedi assembled rogue army units, supplied with American weapons and secret intel. Mercenaries, acrobats, and street gangs were paid handsomely to march towards the government base. The democratic dream of the Iranian people was about to be violently shattered. Evidence shows that bribes flowed like water, purchasing the destruction of a rightful leader. On August 19th, the utterly disastrous phase of Operation Ajax struck Tehran in full force. Paid mobs overran the avenues, brutally attacking anyone who supported the premier. Rebel tanks rumbled through the dusty streets, aiming their heavy cannons at government buildings. Thousands of civilians were caught in the crossfire as orchestrated chaos consumed the city. Mossadegh's historic residence became the epicenter of a desperate military siege. His personal guards fought valiantly, but they were severely outnumbered by the traitorous forces. Artillery shells shattered the walls of his home, leaving only ruins and thick gray ashes. The overwhelmed Prime Minister was forced to flee over a brick wall to avoid a tragic end. Shortly after, he bravely surrendered himself to the rebel commanders to stop further tragedy. Kermit Roosevelt emerged from the shadows, celebrating the disastrous success of the coup. This tragic moment erased years of progress, replacing democracy with absolute dictatorship. The fallen Prime Minister was quickly arrested and faced a brutal military tribunal. He endured years of solitary confinement and sadly passed away under strict house arrest. The frightened king triumphantly returned from a brief exile to reclaim his massive golden throne. Empowered by Western forces, he quickly built an incredibly ruthless secret police network. This vicious organization silenced any remaining opposition through extreme torment and fear. In exchange for his absolute power, the monarch gladly surrendered the oil back to the West. A brand new international consortium was quickly formed to extract the black gold once again. Leaders in Washington celebrated this dark outcome as a brilliant strategic victory. However, they had foolishly planted the very seeds of their own future political nightmare. The resilient people of Iran never forgot the deep pain of this brutal Western betrayal. This intense resentment slowly boiled beneath the surface for 25 agonizing years. It finally exploded into a massive historic revolt in 1979. This Western covert action created a deeply dangerous enemy for the modern world. They successfully traded an entire proud nation's freedom just for some cheap and abundant oil. The tragic legacy of Operation Ajax remains a very dark warning for the whole world. It clearly demonstrates what happens when a fragile democracy is sacrificed for pure greed. The bitter ghosts of 1953 continue to haunt international politics today. This history reveals how imperial greed completely crushed a fragile Middle Eastern democracy. Was this coup a necessary evil or a devastating crime? Please share your thoughts in the comments. To explore more hidden history, please like this video, share it, and subscribe to our channel.